Well, hey, what is going on, First 15? Welcome to another week, and we are excited to kick this morning off with you. And today we're going to be hanging out in a passage that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. We're going to be hanging out in Psalm 23, probably the second most famous passage in the scriptures outside of John 3:16. And we're going to be looking at the truth that David shares with us here, and then we're just going to be praying right through it. So let's go ahead and jump into the first part of this psalm, where it says this: "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." You see, David, he was a shepherd. So when he writes this psalm, there's a lot of imagery here that he understands because he lived it, and the people that are reading it understands because this shepherding was a normal, common thing. Probably not so normal to us, but one thing we know about the shepherd and the sheep was the shepherd was in control. The shepherd was responsible for the sheep. The shepherd's life depended on the life or death of the sheep. And so the sheep's care was everything to the shepherd. And that's why shepherding was such a common thing in the scriptures, that even so many of Jesus' stories that he shares is about this. And especially in John, some of his deepest thoughts are about what does it mean to be a shepherd. And the reality is that Jesus is our shepherd. We are sheep that are very trusting. That's the thing about sheep. Sheep are trusting. They'll trust just about anything that it can come across, and we're very trusting. It's obvious of that because we trust a lot of things, but there is only one that we can trust in that supplies all our needs. There is only one that we can trust in, that when we trust in him, we don't want anything, and that is Jesus. And that's going to be the foundation of everything we're going to pray through today. So let's go ahead and start off with our opening prayer by saying this: Jesus, I recognize and say out loud that you are the shepherd of my life. I know that you have a plan for my life, and you know me better than I know myself. Help me to trust you with all my needs today. Help me to understand that if I have you, I shall not ever want. So then David establishes the role of the shepherd over the sheep, Jesus over our lives. And then David says this: he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. So that was the thing about the sheep. Like, the sheep found its peace by obeying what the shepherd said. So if the shepherd took the sheep to still waters or to green pastures, the sheep would follow the shepherd. And when it followed the shepherd, it would find peace and it would find rest. And sometimes the sheep would get lost and become astray. And there's moments that the shepherd will actually leave the flock to go find that lone sheep and bring the sheep back. And the sheep, regardless of the freedom that it tastes away from the flock, cannot find any kind of peace unless it's with a shepherd. And that's the same thing with me and you. I mean, we get lost at times. There are times that we can get distracted by the world, distracted by our desires, distracted by just about anything. And because we're so trusting, there comes times in our lives where we will trust things way more than we will trust our shepherd, Jesus. And in those moments, Jesus will bring us back. And I love the way that David writes it. He says that he makes me lie down. Listen, there are times where you can lay down and rest, or Jesus will make you lay down and rest. And it's important that we have those moments where he makes us, because in those seasons of life, we are reminded once again that there is nothing outside of Jesus that will ever satisfy us the way that Jesus can. And so as you reflect on that today and what that looks like for your life, maybe you're in a season of wandering where it's time to come back home and to trust the hands of the shepherd Jesus to lay you in the green pastures and beside the still waters to find rest for your soul. Maybe that's the season that you are in right now, or maybe you're not there. Maybe you're doing great, you're finding rest, but there's somebody you can think of right now that's not resting, that's definitely wandering, and they could just use the love of Jesus to bring them back. We want to say this prayer: Jesus, today I recognize and say out loud that I need the peace and rest that only you can provide. Help me to know that I can only find restoration in you. And in those moments when I won't rest, you will make me rest. And help me to see in those moments you are not cruel, but incredibly kind, because in those moments when I'm drawn to you, I find complete restoration. And then David would go on to say this: he leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. I love this. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his sake. Like, the shepherd's going to lead the sheep Sometimes it's going to be easy, sometimes it's going to be hard. You know, the sheep, if they could have their own way, they just go easy all the time. They would never want to go up mountains or go through tough terrain. But the shepherd knows the path. The shepherd knows the end result. So the sheep has to trust the shepherd. It's the same thing with me and you. That there are things that we're going to go through in our life that are going to be tough. They're going to be hard, that we don't want to go through. Maybe you're going through some things right now that are tough and you want nothing else than this season of your life to be over. But for whatever reason, this is what you're going through. And there's some words that David says that are encouraging to us. He says that he does this for his namesake. It's his namesake. You got to understand something, that the moment that you and I said yes to Jesus, his name was written on our hearts, that we are his. Jesus would never, ever do anything to dishonor his name, because if his name were to be dishonored, then, goodness, everything would be dishonored. So he will not put us in a situation where we would fail because he would fail. And Jesus doesn't fail, ever. And so even though what you're going through is tough and the struggle is real, the shepherd's with us, and he will get us through this, and he'll lead us down those paths, regardless of where those paths take us. So just encourage you to pray this with me during this part. Jesus, there is no name like yours. The moment I gave you my life, your name was written on my heart, and I am not my own, but completely yours. Because of this truth, help me to see and know that you would never hurt me, abandon me, or dishonor me. To do so would do so to your name. Therefore, I will walk through whatever path you lead me down, even when that path enters dark valleys. And so here we come to verse 4, which is a very famous part of this passage. And it says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. So many good things out of this verse. I love David's boldness and his confidence in his God, that he says, I will fear no evil. It's not an option for me to fear evil because I am trusting in my God who goes before me. Last week I was talking about this verse with a friend, and she said something that was so profound that has stuck with me. She said that, notice that the valley has a shadow of darkness, right? It's the valley of the shadow of death. There's a shadow there. It's not complete darkness, but a shadow. And shadows are evidence of what? Light. That's why we have shadows. She said that we're not in total darkness. It's just a shadow of that darkness, and that means there's evidence of light, and evidence of light means hope. And I just want you to know that that's exactly where you're at today. If you're going through one of those valleys right now, it's the shadow of death. That means it's not death completely. It's not total darkness. There's a shadow, which means there's light, and that light is Jesus, and there is hope. Because if you've got Jesus, you've got hope, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're facing in your life. And hopefully that would give you confidence to say what David says, that I will fear no evil. And so I just ask, as we close out this time, that you would pray this prayer with me. Jesus, I am no stranger to dark valleys. I know that these valleys are not ifs, but whens. And as sure as I am about the valleys, I am even more about you. Nothing I go through is bigger than you. In the deepest, darkest nights of my soul, remind me that you are near. Remind me that the existence of the shadow is evidence of your light. And allow that light to give me hope and lead me to you. And so I just want to say thanks again, church, for hanging out with us for this first 15. I hope that these words from David are words that bring encouragement and comfort to your soul, and that you'll be reminded today that no matter what you're going through, Jesus is in it. He is with you, and he will not let you fall. We just want you to know we are praying for you, and we love you, and we will see you next time.